Liberal leadership candidates are squaring off this week in two debates in Montreal. Presumed frontrunner Mark Carney and rivals Chrystia Freeland, Karina Gold, and Frank Bayless will participate in the French language debate tonight, and they'll face off again in English on Tuesday. But absent from the debates will be former MP Ruby Dalla, who was disqualified by the Liberal Party this weekend. She was disqualified from the Liberal leadership race after the party's vote committee said she had violated multiple rules. The party's national director said that the decision was made unanimously by a joint sitting of both the vote and expense committees. They say Dalla was in breach of 10 violations of the national leadership rules, leadership vote rules, and the leadership expense rules. Yesterday, Ms. Dalla said that she is appealing the decision on social media.
I've just received this message from one of the most prominent reporters in our country. They are going to disqualify you for campaign irregularities and not for foreign influence. The past 48 hours have been very difficult.
Please do not disqualify me. It will not send the right message for our party to immigrants and for young people and women in our country.
I know that my brother's with me because it's 2:33. His angel number is 33. 333. Yeah. They had a meeting with me at 1:30, and I said, regardless of what you think of me, just think about the other cultural communities in our country and women and young people. You're going to send the wrong message. They only want to talk about diversity. They only want to talk about representation of women. But when it comes down to it, they want to silence you and they want to disqualify you. They did not want me to go on to that debate stage in Montreal. They certainly did not want me on that ballot. And the Liberal Party of Canada wanted to complete the coronation of Mark Carney.
We're going to bring in Liberal strategist Andrew Perez for more on the disqualification and the debates. Andrew, thanks for being with us.
Great to be here.
Now, before we get into the debates, do we know anything else beyond irregularities for why Ruby Dalla was disqualified?
We don't know a whole lot, Theresa. She was slapped with 10 very serious violations of the Canada Elections Act. And the detail that we know is it relates to her not disclosing one member of her campaign staff was a non-citizen, 12 payments that were made using the same credit card, and also campaign donations made by a corporation through the form of salaried payments to campaign staff. And so I do know that the Liberal Party would have exercised due diligence and would have sought legal counsel, and this is not a decision that they would have made lightly to disqualify a candidate permanently from a leadership race at this late stage in the race. The vote is in 2 weeks from now, and so Miss Dalla has said that she has appealed the decision, but I suspect that the decision will stand.
And should the party be more forthcoming as to what these specific issues are?
I mean, at this time, I think they have provided sufficient detail. As I say, these are very serious allegations, and as I outlined, the number 3 allegations. And again, Miss Dalla is within her rights to seek legal counsel and to ask for an appeal. But I suspect that this decision will be final and that she will not be on the ballot on March 9th.
Now, in the video that played during the introduction, Ruby Dalla had posted on her social media that what message is this giving to women and immigrants in the country? And some are highlighting that the 2 South Asian candidates that have been disqualified from the race, it's sending the wrong message to the minority communities in Canada. Is there a merit to their complaints here?
I mean, we don't yet know entirely why both candidates were disqualified, but at the end of the day, I trust the Liberal Party's judgment, and I don't think that we can jump to conclusions around the race or the gender of these 2 candidates that were disqualified. Again, the party takes this leadership race very seriously and is assessing the rules carefully in collaboration with Elections Canada. And, Miss Dalla was deemed to have broken 10 violations, and that's very serious. And so the party has taken action.
And what do you make of her claim that the Liberal Party is setting things up to benefit Mark Carney?
No, I think that's just a cheap shot on Miss
Mhm.
Dallas' part. At the end of the day, this race was wide open for anybody to enter the race, provided that they could, provide the money up front. And this has been an open and transparent process. And it is true that Mr. Carney is the front runner in this race. But again, I don't think that this decision by the party to disqualify Miss Dalla has anything to do with tipping the scale in favor of one candidate over the other. It's about having a credible process that Liberal Party members and Canadians can trust, and also guarding against foreign interference.
Now, I want to move the attention to the debate. So, the first debate is tonight. It's going to be in French. And how much will this debate matter for Mark Carney, given the questions that have been raised about his ability to debate in French?
I think it's an important debate for all the candidates.
Mhm.
None of the candidates are francophone; their mother tongues are not French, and so I think it will be important for the four remaining candidates in this race to demonstrate their facility in the French language, and not only that, but to be able to relate to the Quebec people. Quebec is a very unique province; it's a distinct society, and while affordability issues and the crisis we're facing vis-a-vis the U.S. Those are challenges that are being felt in Quebec, but there's also other issues that are specific to Quebec. And so I think the Quebecois people and Liberal Party members in Quebec will be watching this debate with great interest, not only to assess the language skills of the candidates, but also to hear more about their vision for Canada and presumably a Quebec that is united within a greater Canada.
So, Mark Carney has been caught saying one thing regarding energy projects in French while saying the opposite in English. I'm curious, what has the backlash looked like to that? And do you think that mistakes like this are going to have an impact on the campaign?
So I'm not sure that this was a mistake. I think Mr. Carney himself and the Carney campaign acknowledged that they need to tighten their messaging.
Mhm.
Again, when a candidate is speaking in a language that isn't their mother tongue, there are sometimes challenges, and sometimes people misspeak when they're not speaking in their native language. I think what Mr. Carney was trying to say is that we need to prioritize energy, natural resources projects. We need to get resources to market. And that includes perhaps using emergency powers to ensure that pipelines are built. Now, does that mean doing so without the consent of the provinces? No, the provinces like Quebec, need to consent. There needs to be social license to move these projects forward. And I think that's simply the point that Mr. Carney was trying to make. Again, he did acknowledge that he needs to tighten his messaging, especially when speaking in French. But I think the point that he was making is these are critical projects that we need to get built. We need to cut red tape to make sure that these projects are built, but we need to do it in a collaborative way so that provinces are at the table and are key stakeholders in the process.
There have been a lot of talk about endorsements, with much of Trudeau's cabinet endorsing Carney and not their colleague Chrystia Freeland. Now, how much do these endorsements matter, and what signal does it send that they aren't backing Freeland?
So endorsements can matter.
Mhm.
If you look, Mr. Carney has 83 endorsements from within the Liberal caucus. That is a very impressive number when you consider the Liberal caucus has about 153 members in total. So he's got, well over half of the Liberal caucus and cabinet behind him. Miss Freeland only has 27 members. And if you look at the people that are endorsing Mark Carney, they're key organizers in the party. They're people that are able to organize and move votes for Carney. And so I think that will matter. I think the sheer number of endorsements that he has, as well as his very strong campaign fundraising apparatus, are two key reasons as to why he's the clear front runner in this race. As to what it means for Miss Freeland, I mean, I think it is difficult for her given that she's been in cabinet for nearly 10 years and she
Mhm.
hasn't been able to line up more endorsements. But I think the party is looking for an outsider, for a change agent to come in and really give the party a chance in this election that will come this spring. And I think probably most Liberals are concluding that Mr. Carney represents the best hope of doing that.
And some of the critics have pointed out that the leadership race so far has been somewhat lacking in terms of vision for the party. Do you think that the debate tonight will offer more on policy in terms of the visions that the candidates have for the party and the country?
Yes, I'm hoping it's the case, Theresa. There hasn't been a whole lot of policy debate in this leadership race so far, but the top tier candidates have been releasing more and more policy pledges. We've seen, both Carney and Freeland speak to the affordability crisis, needing to axe the consumer carbon tax, and also Mr. Carney recently unveiling a plan to change the federal budgeting process in Canada to have an operating budget and a capital budget to balance the operating budget within 3 years, to put a temporary cap on immigration levels until they return to pre-pandemic levels. These are all bold policies that have been put forward by the frontrunners, and I'm hoping that over the next 2 nights, both in French and English, we'll see some robust debate and some differences
Andrew,
between the
sorry, I
candidates.
do just have to interrupt. We've ran out of time, but thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Take care.
Stay with us. More news right after this.